This focaccia is the easiest bread, period. Even a beginner can pull this one off. Why? Because it requires zero skills and it's low effort.
Right up there in the effort-reward graph.
You can customize it, use it in sandwiches, and even turn it into a pizza if you want to piss off your Italian friends. As all good things in life, this starts with a white powder, flour that is, don't get too excited. So focaccia is usually made with bread flour. That's what I'm using here. You can use all-purpose flour, but let's just say the end product will not be ideal. More on that later. So 400 grams of bread flour go into a bowl along with some salt and a teaspoon of yeast. I want to evenly distribute the salt and yeast in the flour mass at this stage. Much easier to do it now than having to knead the dough later. So, to achieve that even distribution of ingredients, I'm using a fork. Mix everything for a good 30 seconds. Next, I'm adding 300 milliliters of water. That might seem like a lot, and that's because it is a lot of water. To achieve bigger bubbles and a good texture in my dough, water quantity is the key. The only thing I have to do now is to mix the water with the flour. A fork will do the job. Go in and start mixing. How long should you mix? Well, I don't know, mix until the flour is hydrated and no flour pockets exist. See, like this one. This is a flour pocket, that's no bueno, keep mixing. The purpose here is to incorporate the water and hydrate the flour. 2 minutes of forking and my job here is done. This dough does not require kneading. Yes, you heard me right. In fact, no doughs require kneading. Anyways, that's for another video. So, before letting the dough to ferment, I want to use olive oil, also known as Italian lubricant. I'll just pour some of it in and then use the dough to smush all the olive oil around. Anyways, I'll cover with plastic wrap, also known as fish killing bags, and put that dough in the fridge to slow ferment for 1 to 4 days. All the time will develop flavor in the dough.
I said it's easy, not fast. Sue me. Flavor and fast don't go together in bread making. You can bake the focaccia the same day, but the flavor will take a hit. Now, I also promised you an explanation on that white powder. So, what's the difference between all-purpose flour and bread flour?
Judging a flour by its cover, the answer is in the freaking name. Bread making versus the rest of baked goods, I guess. Both look the same, they pretty much taste the same, but the bread kind has a lot of gluten, or more accurate, has the ability to generate more gluten in your dough. Basically, the bread flour has a higher amount of proteins in it compared to the proteins in all-purpose flour, which has less. Those proteins will bind together when flour is mixed with water. The result is a matrix structure of proteins linked up together, also known as gluten. Yes, those long strands that you can see in my dough over here, that's the gluten matrix. That gluten structure gives good bread its distinctive elasticity, makes it chewy and strong enough to hold big bubbles as the ones that you can see in my bread over here. See? Big bubbles.
And that's why I prefer to pay the extra $1 and use bread flour for making bread. Now, that doesn't mean that all-purpose is bad.
You can use all-purpose, but the gluten will not develop as much. Consequently, your bread will be less ideal.
Now, you might wonder, what happens to all the gluten that's not included in all-purpose flour?
Well, I think it's dumped on Hollywood celebrities to make their lives miserable. Back to my dough. 1 day in and it's baking time. I'm using a big pan that I'm greasing with enough olive oil to see my bright future in. Coat the corners, the sides, basically everything the dough can stick to, and believe me, this will stick like there's no tomorrow. Then I'll take my dough out of the fridge. It's so big and bubbly. See? What did I tell you? Long fermentation is the key. Carefully, I'm gonna take the dough out of the bowl and dump it on my pan. I don't want to degas it too much, so I'm just letting physics gravity take over. Go Newton! Alright, coming out a little bit more and no, still not out. Okay, and that's it. It's out. Now, before stretching it, it's crucial to let it sit at room temperature for 30 minutes. The gluten will relax and the dough will easily stretch. 30 minutes passed, time to stretch that dough in all four corners of the pan. Again, I'm gonna use a little bit of that Italian lubricant to coat my hands and then it's stretch time. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll try my best not to punch the air out too much, using my fingers to push and stretch the dough. That works just fine. See? Push then stretch. Push and the stretching comes naturally. Once the dough covers the pan, I let it puff again at room temperature for, let's just say 1 to 3 hours. The time basically depends on the damage you've done during stretching. If you punched out too much air, the dough will take longer to puff up again. Once the dough looks plump and puffy like this, you can go crazy with the toppings. In my case, I'll heat it with a generous coating of olive oil like a proud Italian, a few green olives, cherry tomatoes cut in half, a sprinkle of rosemary and 1 of flaky salt. You can add whatever you want as toppings as long as it's not cheese.
Apparently, that's where Italians draw the line between focaccia and pizza. Who'd have thought? These Americans, they put cheese on everything, eh? We like to overreact in reaction videos.
I'm gonna bake my focaccia at 425 Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes or until puffed and golden brown like this. I'll take the focaccia out of the pan as soon as I can and let it cool on a baking rack. Then tear into it like an animal or use it in sandwiches like this one. Much cheese, great milk. To piss off all Italians, transform it into grandma-style pizza by adding tomato sauce and cheese before baking.
And now you can make bread on which you would pay $5 to Jeff Bezos at Whole Foods. Now go live that Dolce Vita focaccia dream.
This video is brought to you by people who subscribe to my channel and also get notified when I'm posting new videos, so do that to me so I can get rid of my software engineering job. Yay! Thank you, bye!